Hello there, I'm Blackbright, broadcasting out of the UK into your homes, on your phones, or whichever medium or device you're using to watch me. I just wanted to thank you so much for subscribing, for sharing, for liking, for disliking even, because it shows me that there's always differences of opinions. And I also I want to thank you for your donations. So yes, really, really appreciate all of your support and the love that you show. Um, Today I wanted to talk about when everything gets too much. And we're living in a time now where it's so easy for everything to get too much. I mean, I heard today that it's very likely that by September Britain's going to go into complete lockdown. Is that going to tip everyone over the edge? I mean, businesses and individuals who may have taken loans to recover from the last lockdown, how is that going to impact them now, this time, if there is another lockdown in September? I mean, I've been saying in my videos it's inevitable. I thought it was going to be October because, as far as I'm concerned, that is the date that I read somewhere it was going to happen. I guess if it happened in October, it would have been too predictable. So it looks like it might happen in September. But regardless, we're in a society where things are just getting too much. And how are we coping? And and the thing is with the coronavirus, we can't even say we're complicit in it. We can't even say that we have anything to do with it. We can't even say that we can do something about it. Technically, people who will have their doubts about it could have probably done something by now, but most people feel like sitting ducks. They feel quite helpless, and they're leaving themselves to the powers that be to get through this. But what about those other things apart from the coronavirus which we can't help? I mean, and I'm not talking about natural disasters. I'm talking about the everyday things that sometimes get on top of us. They tend to say that things happen in threes, and you usually find that they do. And so something simple like forgetting your tickets and reaching the train station, or missing the train, or losing your watch, or forgetting your keys, one on top of the other, can add to your frustration and to the way you react. And I started thinking about that lady that went into the jeweller's shop in Boreham Wood and was arrested by those 6 police officers. And I was wondering what her day had been like before she went to that jewellery shop. Had she had a series of mishaps? Had she had a letter from a final bill? You know, a final warning, I mean. Had she lost her job? Had her children been taken away? Had her car broken down? Is there a reason why she wanted to get a refund? Did she need that money? And the fact that she couldn't get it made her aggressive and over the edge. And then I started thinking about black people who they say are aggressive. And I was wondering whether it's cumulative events that make them aggressive. I mean, when I say cumulative, I'm thinking, okay, the remnants of slavery, the racial profiling, the disrespect, the disappointments, the betrayals, the overzealous police officers, the fact that they feel as though they're not in a competitive market or an equal competitive market. I wonder if all of those cumulative things that happen in their lives contribute to their behaviour and contribute to the fact that they're aggressive, because aggressiveness then becomes a defence mechanism. So I thought about that lady who went into the shop and started banging at the panels, and because it doesn't seem like a normal reaction to not being able to get a refund. And when I did that video, I didn't really think about the cumulative elements that can happen in people's lives that can change their disposition, change their behaviour, change the way they react to things. So I was remiss in that. And I'm not even saying that all of those things happen to her, to that lady. All I'm saying is that there's a possibility. And we have to, us as we approach a second lockdown, how is that going to tip us over the edge? Many businesses, like I said, could have taken out loans. It could mean that you definitely won't get your job back. How does that impact you? Does that mean you have to start thinking now or worrying about whether or not, if you don't have a job, how are you going to pay your mortgage? Does that mean you have to start thinking now about what options do you have to prevent yourself from losing your home? What options do you have when there are no jobs to find a job? What do? You have to really push yourself. And I remember when I was made redundant and I was devastated. I was devastated because of my age and because I was entering this was before retirement was, there was no retirement. So I was being made redundant at a time when my age was against me. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'll never get a job. And I had a mortgage. And but it pushed me. It actually strengthened me because I decided I'd take anything. And I ended up taking a part-time job. Now, a part-time job, it was less than 16 hours. So it meant I could get that supplement thing that the tax man gives you. I forget what it's called because it's over 10 years ago. But they actually supplement you if you're on 16 hours. So I was able to do, and to be honest, I don't think I would have ever known my capacity to look after the learning disabled or children with learning disabilities. I didn't think I'd have the patience or the tolerance. And I discovered that I was a very patient and affectionate person to people who, especially young children or young adults, who were disadvantaged in that way. So it taught me something about myself that I would never have known. But on top of that, it also made me realise how vulnerable I felt. And I remember I had this contract, a phone contract, and I was really feeling vulnerable. And I called the company and I said, look, I've been made redundant and I can't afford £35 a month that you're asking me for. Is there any way you can put me on another tariff and reduce my monthly payment? They said no, flat no. That is the contract you're on and you're going to have to pay it. And I burst into tears because I thought to myself, how cruel is that? Rather than you reduce it to a level that I could afford, you say, no, I'm stuck in it. But then I thought, okay, maybe from their perspective, anybody could say that, couldn't they? But they could ask for proof. And I guess if losing your job was a reason for everyone to say, look, I need to have my tariff lowered, they're not going to make any money because that's how they make their money, by overcharging you. Anyway, I swore at that time I would never take out another contract. And I haven't. I'm not going to take out a phone contract because I do not want to be put in that position where I had to pay it. But also being put in that position where I had to pay that out of my meagre earnings, it forced me to get a second job. And so I had two jobs running concurrently, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and I could get by. So what I'm saying is that, yes, sometimes these things happen to us and they say tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. But sometimes tough people have their limits as well. So not everyone who's tough or who appears tough can cope through hard times when one thing piles on top of another. I mean, we only can bear so much. And so how do we cope in these times of adversity? What do we do? I think my suggestion is, which isn't probably one that you'll want to hear, is that you adjust, you adapt, and you accept. You adjust to the fact that this is the new situation. Then you adapt to that new situation. And then you need to accept that new situation and see what you can do within that situation that can help you to feel less stressed. I mean, when you think about feeling as though you're unable to cope, it brings on feelings of anxiety, panic. I mean, it's times like this where you hear about suicides and all sorts. And especially when people are on their own or lonely, but you must always remember there's victim support and there's always the Samaritans. You never have to feel alone. You never have to feel lonely. Those Samaritan peoples are there 24/7 just to listen to people who can't cope and who are going over the edge. So never feel alone. So what else have we got here? Like I said, I do not know whether or not that lady who went to the shop, she had a cumulative set of experiences that made her react in the way that she did. Sometimes when we see road rage, what has precipitated that? What set of circumstances has tipped that over the edge? Like I said, it can be something like you lose your keys. Once you lose your keys and then you lose your phone, or once you've lost your phone and you can't get hold of anyone, and then you're trying to catch a bus and you miss the bus or you miss a train. You go home and you find, a penalty notice, or your electricity's been cut off, or you get a repossession notice. These things happen to people. Come home, your husband's left you or your wife has left you. You're like, why me? Why did it happen to me? Your partner passes. Your child gets killed in an accident. You become disabled because of an accident. Why me? You have to ask yourself, why not you? It has to happen to someone. And that's the thing, sometimes because we have that mindset of why me, that's what makes us depressed. We have to realize that loss is inevitable. Things are not going to remain the same. Circumstances are not going to remain the same. One thing that's guaranteed is change. And you can guarantee if you're having a good time, a bad time is around the corner. That's what makes the world go round. And I'm not saying that you have to be in a permanent mode of expecting the worst. But what I'm saying is being aware that the worst can happen and mitigating against it. How can you mitigate against it? What options do you have if this happens? We've got a month's notice that there might be a lockdown in September. What can we do about that now? What action can you take in 4 weeks? And it's not in 4 weeks. How do we know it's not going to be the 1st of September? We don't know. 1 minute Boris Johnson saying, there's not going to be no national lockdown. We're not going to have another lockdown. And look, I'll tell you something. These people, I don't know what they're trying to do. Well, I do know what they're trying to do. But so what I'm talking about is your mental health, peeps. What can you do when the shit hits the fan, which it will? What can you do to mitigate that? Because we are all in a position where we have different levels of coping skills. The way one person copes, another person can't cope in that way. So how do you cope with things? You don't want to go on excessive binging. You don't want to start smoking again. You don't want to start overeating. You don't want to start getting angry with your spouse. And sometimes when spouses leave, it might just happen that it leaves during the coronavirus, but sometimes it's a build-up over time. Sometimes a person has felt uncared for. They're not nurtured. Everyone wants to have a feeling of belonging. When people get married, that's why they get married. They want to maintain that feeling of belonging, that feeling that they had when they first met, where you were nurturing, loving, spooning, nuzzling underneath the covers, playing tootsie, holding hands in the bed. Now, a few years later, one's got their head turned one way, they're back to back. There's no warmth, there's no attention. All there is demands. No appreciation. Each partner takes the other for granted. They become complacent. They sit there, they get fat, they curse, they let themselves go. They don't pay attention to people's concerns or their spouse's concerns and requests. Oh yeah, I'll do it later. Yeah, I'll do it. And weeks down the line it's not done. And each person is clocking up the disappointments. It might happen once, but when it keeps happening, it's clocking up the disappointments. It's clocking up against the fact that they're not getting what they bargained for. They're not getting that love and attention. They don't feel as though they are receiving a warm and nurturing relationship. So one day you come home and you get a letter, or you don't even get a letter. I'm leaving. I've gone. I'm not coming back. And you sit there and say, oh, there were no signs. He's left me or she's left me. I didn't know they were leaving me. Oh, if they hadn't even let them know everything was fine this morning. But was it fine this morning? What happened this morning that you didn't notice? And I bet if you thought back on it and tried to visualize it, you'll probably notice that spouse didn't really talk to you, or was very short, or they kind of said goodbye without kissing you on the cheek, or things that you probably wouldn't notice ordinarily. And that's what happens in relationships sometimes. People don't notice the signs. It's almost like they're in a world of their own. They're so self-absorbed, they don't even notice when the relationship is deteriorating. And then when it does, and it's like, oh, woe is me, why did this happen to me? People are not paying attention. The same way as that people are not paying attention to what's going on in the world. People are not paying attention to what these people are saying on the TV. People are not paying attention to inconsistencies in what they're saying, what the media is saying. People are not paying attention. And then when it happens, it's like, oh, why did it happen? How come it happened? Blah, blah, blah. You really need to pay attention. Because when everything comes down on you and you can't cope, you're going to wish you'd paid attention. So, they reckon what discourages you develops you. Our courage is inbuilt. We need to face up to what's happening and accepting. And like I said, adjust, adapt and accept. It might seem cold, but we need to do that. Because a change is inevitable. One thing that's guaranteed is change. And one thing that's guaranteed is loss and death. And we will always be losing someone or something. So you just have to appreciate the moment. Show gratitude in the moment. I don't know who wrote, it might be Eckhart Tolle, that talked about the now, living in the now. And you don't know how deep that is. It might sound quite philosophical, but now is all we have. When you have people in your life now, you have to appreciate them now. Because like I said, when things are going tits up and you've had a relationship over the last few months that's been going downhill and you've been snappy and irritable, when you need that strength and that comfort and that love, it's not going to be there. And it's going to compound the situation that you're already in. And it's going to make that relationship fragile. So it's so important, if you're with somebody, just treat them well. If you don't like them, get out. Do both of yourselves a favour. Who wants to be in a relationship where the love has died and where you don't care about each other and where you don't want to look forward to going home to see each other? You know, and then when all of these things happen, like if we do have a situation where we have this lockdown, you're in a situation where this is going to feel as though you cannot cope. So either you learn to love again and we can all reignite the flame. If you dig deep enough, you can reignite the flame. You can think about everything that made you love that person in the first place and accept that that person is not perfect. So start digging deep from now before this lockdown happens and look for all the positive qualities in your partner, because you're going to need to love him and he's going to need to love you to get through this. And that's just not spouses either. Anybody you meet, anybody in your life, look for their better qualities. If you found yourself being overly critical recently, or judging and not being nice and being short and being irritable with people, try to remember why those people first came in your life and be nice. And look for those qualities and try to reignite the flame and the liking for that person. Because you're going to need everyone you can. And it might not be for financial support, it's more likely to be for emotional support. So you need to resist saying, why me? And if you feel as though you've got no one to talk to, pray. And like I said, prayer, Samaritans, victim support. If you're going through some kind of abusive relationship or whatever, and you're in this situation and it's just being compounded, one thing after another, no money, lost your job, can't get another job, all of those things that I mentioned. There's always someone out there at the end of the phone. And like I said, it might not be somebody you know. And sometimes it's better that you don't know these people. Like the Samaritans, they don't know you from Adam. So when you're telling them how you feel and they're actually experienced to speak to you in a way that is helpful and will get you through it, at least you'll know you've got someone to talk to. You're not totally alone. So, if you've lost your job, just know you're not the only one who's lost your job. So it's not personal. And a lot of times when these things happen, you can't help taking it personally because it's affecting you as an individual. But just remember, it's not personal. The coronavirus isn't personal. Furlough isn't personal. Layoffs are not personal. Yes, the government could have done a lot to improve the situation, but it's not personal. So, don't take anything for granted. Don't become complacent. Don't ignore things that are being said. Look at the signs. Look at whether or not someone's being silent, distant, short. Look at the signs. Be alert. I mean, when Boris says keep safe, keep alert, save lives, that's quite a deep philosophy. Because when you say keep safe, that is what you need to do anyway, not just safe from the coronavirus, but safe from any kind of adversity, safe from any kind of harm. When he's talking about keep alert of any kind of threat, be alert and, mitigate against it and save lives. You can only save your own by being healthy and having healthy thoughts. So, like I said, I thought I touched it just then. Yeah, all I'm saying is that we can't really judge why people behave the way they do. We don't know what's happened, what's compounded the situation that's made an individual react the way they are. And the thing is that when, like that lady, I keep thinking about that lady. I mean, there's no way the jewelers would know what her day's been like. There's no way the police could possibly know what her day's been like, nor would they be interested. And I think sometimes when we go through lives and we see people behaving in a certain way, we're very quick to judge. And I remember I had a friend, and she told me that she couldn't stand the relationship she was in. And I remember saying to her, just get up and leave, because that's what I would do. If you're that unhappy and you can't stand him coming through the door, leave. And she said to me, I can't leave because I've invested all my money in this house. It was his house. I've invested all my money in this house. And I said to her, the house is material. You can always get another place to live. And she said she can't. And I remember at that time not thinking. I was thinking about what I would do. I was thinking about my resourcefulness, my resilience. And I was thinking, yeah, I would leave. I don't care about the house. I don't care about the material things. Self-preservation is a must. I care about myself. And I would chip. I mean, 4 days later, she was dead. She committed suicide. And I questioned myself so many times about that. Should I have said, come home with me? Should I have said, should I have stayed with her? And it had bothered me for so long. I was really affected by it. And then I remembered all the things she had been through. Her brother had murdered her mother, her husband, and her, and had actually stabbed her. So she nearly died. And then she'd had a series of unsuccessful relationships. And then I was her best friend, and I'd left her, and I'd gone to live my life in America for my self-preservation at that time. And so when she married this white man, she was a black girl. To her, she probably thought at the time, I've had such bad luck with black men, I'm going to go for a white man. And that white man, she said, and I remember sitting there, she said, that he makes me feel like a sex slave. And he was such an awkward looking person. Not attractive. I mean, this woman was beautiful, absolutely beautiful and talented. She was a jazz player and she could sing. Beautiful. And all I'm saying is that I hadn't thought about all of those adverse experiences that she had gone through, one on top of another, compounding each situation. And then she realised that even a white man couldn't make her happy. And it was too much. So what I'm saying is that when you see people react, when you see people, commit suicidal, something takes them over the edge, it's never just one thing. It's compounded by a series of things. And when you think about people who are aggressive or who are shouting and who are behaving in an unreasonable manner, there's something behind it. They don't just wake up aggressive. And I'm sure in other situations, these people are quite calm people. But what have they gone through? What has their life been like? What are their set of circumstances? Don't let that be you. Don't let things get on top of each other. Try to deal with each thing as it happens, one step at a time, not one trauma at a time, but one incident at a time, so it doesn't overwhelm you. And try to think about worst case scenarios and work backwards so that you're prepared. Well, I don't even know. I didn't expect this to be such a depressing topic, but you know, we're at a time when things can get on top of us and everything does seem like too much. And all I'm trying to help you do is just give it some thought ahead of time so that hopefully you don't get overwhelmed by it and you're able to help it, get through it, and you build up a resource and you build up a community and you build up people around you in such a way that you have more support than you wouldn't have had you not tried to re-establish relationships, ignite flames, and sort out your affairs before the worst happens. And that's all for now. Bye bye.